I titled today's Neville Goddard conversation, "For Others Only Echo That Which We Whisper to Them in Secret." See, I always say this. Our thinking patterns, they reveal. Our emotions, they reveal. What are they revealing? That which we, a lot of times, are unconsciously saying, "I am too." One of the great benefits of relating with each other is to recognize how the thinking patterns, the programming within ourselves play out as the relationship. It's important to take 100% full responsibility. Recognize this distinct truth that people show up saying the exact same things that we imagine them to say, although it might be revealed in their body language, in their voice tonality, what they say, how they say, when they say, why they say, which is still sourced from within. And so he states, the great secret is a controlled imagination, as well as a sustained attention firmly and repeatedly focused on the object to be accomplished. So when I'm having a conversation with someone and they say, "This is how I authentically see myself," I take the responsibility to imagine them to be that way. And anything that they say or present, I want to understand my own thinking patterns in relation to, because this is revealing my degree of congruence of how I represent them in my mind's eye. I recognize the reality is within imagination, and the outer is the expression of that reality. They are one. Outer is a reflection of the inner, and inner is the reflection of the outer. Or as I say also, reality is the affirmation in mind. So that is what I'm suggesting to myself in conversation, in interaction with each other. And to emphasize, he states, all transformation is based upon suggestion. And this can work only where you lay yourself completely open to an influence. What influence? The intuitive influence of how it actually is. See, I did this for many years. I would look around to see what others are doing, and my own interpretations in relation to those aspects was determining how I would think next, and I would behave accordingly. And if for whatever the reason, I would interpret what they were doing from the perspective of, I am not good enough, I would operate from that premise because that's what I'm unconsciously saying I am too. If I was thinking from the perspective of shame, I would operate from that premise because that's what I was saying I am too, although at that time, unconsciously, which is why I recommend bringing conscious awareness to these thinking patterns and to not shame the shame, but rather let go of those thinking patterns. Think truly and accurately based on how it actually is, the facts in imagination. Now, when a person does this, they'll notice that other people change. As we discussed in last Sunday's video, people change real time in our inner conversations. So a few ways of going about doing this. But before we get into that, let's further emphasize this in relation to this quote here, where he says, "The principle of least action governs everything in physics, from the path of a planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the state desired, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. Your journey from one state of consciousness is a psychological one. So to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action, and the psychological equivalent is mere assumption." Now, if we go back to our videos in which we discussed the power of the subconscious mind and intuition on Tuesday and Thursday, we will recognize that we have the ability to see the facts in our imagination of how they actually are in relation to whatever it is that they say. then I take the psychological equivalent of least action, and we see the conversations change. So we place our attention on the facts of imagination, that which they truly represent, and we begin to think from that premise in relation to the conversation. We operate from that state of mind. And the transformation of self occurs and reflects as the effects of that transformation, others echoing that which we whisper to them in secret, which is how they truly are. And so he says, your attention must be developed, controlled, and concentrated in order to change your concept of yourself successfully and thereby change your future. Now, as I have a conversation with someone and have a conversation with myself, universally so, everybody desires to live how they truly want to live. This is the universal conversation. And what we do is represent ourselves and others from that perspective. And if we have any if, ands, or buts thinking patterns that are brought to the surface as a result of thinking that way, and we identify with those thinking patterns, then that could play out as the theater of what they say, behave, etc. in the conversation, as well as what we say, what we do, and how we interact in the conversation. We take the full responsibility inside and concentrate lightheartedly so. You get better at it with practice, and by practice, I really mean letting go of the thinking patterns that are inaccurate to how you truly are, and thus how they truly are. And as a result of it, this gets easier. It was a lot more challenging in the earlier stages to represent people for how they said they are in the start of the conversation, the representation of prosperity. And I would doubt, and I would have fears, I would have indecisions brought to the surface. These are revelations based on my thinking and my emotions to reveal what was going on within myself. And over the course, I let go of these thinking patterns, and I found it was easy for me to represent them and maintain that state of mind in conversation as they transform and produce the results. This is true for any relationship, any interaction with any other human being. You'll notice this. Those that have the ability to facilitate transformation are actually going through the transformation process in themselves by letting go of the doubts in relation to what another person communicates to them and sees the other person in the mind's eye of truth, the facts of imagination, for how they truly are. And so he says, attention is developed by repeated exercise or habit. So we practice this, and we have a lot of fun doing this. To be able to represent people in my mind's eye for how they truly are, so we can enjoy life together and have a fun, flow-based conversation. That's a lot of fun and flow and joy for me. I feel bliss in those experiences. And so by repeated exercise, it's really becoming how we truly are. All of this, when it comes to personal development, when it comes to this information that we've been discussing, is about letting go of inaccurate thinking patterns in relation to how we are not, and receiving within via intuition and even inspiration with others, which is a reflection of the intuition within, the true and accurate thinking patterns in relation to our experiences, so we can live how we truly want to live, which is from the true identity of our higher self. And so he says, your imagination is able to do all that you ask in proportion to the degree of your attention. All progress, all fulfillment of desire depend upon the control and concentration of your attention. Now, in the earlier stages, I thought this control and concentration of your attention was a force-based thing. Like I had to try to do this. Upon working with this information, it is as simple as imagining that which you truly love. Our attention and concentration automatically goes in that direction. Think of children, for example. A child, or somebody who has re-established their relationship with their true childlike nature, automatically focuses their attention and imagination on that which they love, because they have let go of the inaccurate thinking patterns that are not representative of who they truly are. And thus they are thinking and imagining that which they truly are in relation to themselves, in relation to others, in relation to their experiences. And everything happens automatically because they are applying the principle of least action. Let's reflect upon it again. He says, the principle of least action governs everything in physics, from the path of the planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the desired state, that which you truly are, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. Your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action, and the psychological equivalent is mere assumption. I am that person now. Reality is the affirmation in mind. That which I am suggesting of myself in relationship with another is the affirmation in mind. I recognize by acknowledging myself for how I truly am, others play out. Others echo that which we whispered to them in secret. Intuition compels, automatically so, as expression in conversation, body language, interaction, or theater that plays out on the journey to realizing that relationship in all its vivid accuracy. And so to emphasize, he says, concentrated observation on one thing shuts out another thing and causes them to disappear, childlike again. So I've put together this 5-step process that we can apply in the immediate interactions with people, day-to-day experiences. Number 1, commit to the relationships you want in imagination. Recognize that what you desire desires you back. Number 2, people show up. They show up communicating with you everywhere you go, interactions, personal life, business life. Number 3, lightheartedly so. Observe your undesirable reaction, if any, to what they communicate, and your thinking patterns in relation to what they are saying, their body language, etc. Go into the silence. Have a conversation with someone that you truly trust. Go in and have a conversation with yourself. Connect with the power of your subconscious mind. You have a relationship with your subconscious mind. And receive from within the true and accurate thinking patterns within in relation to how it actually is, from the perspective of your vision. Identify with those thinking patterns, such as with autosuggestion or imagination, and recognize that they are truly facts in imagination, which are true and in harmony with how you actually are. Another way I say number 3 here is what within me is revealing this opportunity or experience on the screen of space that I would label as undesirable. I bless it with my imagination as ideal and assume it as done. Instantly I feel better, for it has been forever released. Now I used to notice this in the earlier stages as a result of working with this information. People would seem to disappoint me with what they would do, their body language or what they would say, etc. And I recognized that this was all theater that was playing out from me within myself, and I would apply the same process. I would say, what within me is revealing this experience? I'd find the inaccurate thinking pattern, such as a result of what they say, I don't feel good enough. As a result of what they do, the power is outside of me, or something like that. And then I allow the true and accurate intuitive patterns to surface, such as people show up in harmony and in contribution to my vision. Then I notice that people are a lot more friendly with me. Everywhere I go, I interact with people and they seem harmonious. That's because that is how they truly are, and I was able to see them accurately as a result of the cause and effect reflections. And we can do this real time in the interactions with people. You get better at it with practice. Find the true and accurate thinking patterns within. And so then there's number 5, which he says, when I meet people tomorrow that today disappointed me, they will not tomorrow, for in me I have changed the very nature of that being. And having changed him, he bears witness tomorrow of the change that took place within me, which is the theater that plays out as a result of the change within. So what I recognize on this journey is, as much as I may have done in the past to look to the outer world and start pointing fingers, I realize that it's far more effective to change within myself. And I observe as the changes occur to reflect the changes within myself. And here's the nuanced distinction. I recognize the opportunities each day to think and feel the completion within myself, which automatically expresses as ideal relationships, ideal life experiences, these are all symbolic representations of the completion within, and more accurately put, the acknowledgement that we are already complete within ourselves, and we may have certain thinking patterns that we've identified with for whatever the reason may be, which we now have the opportunity through this process to let go of. We can do this real time while we're interacting with people. And I do this in moments of solitude, where he says, now this is how we do it. At the end of my day, and I notice for me that I could do it in the middle of the day, when I go for a walk, etc. He says, I review the day, or I review the events, we could say. I don't judge it, I simply review it. I look over the entire day, all the episodes, all the events, all the conversations, all the meetings, and then I see it clearly in my mind's eye. I rewrite it. I rewrite it and make it conform to the ideal day I wish I had experienced. I take scene after scene and rewrite it, revise it. And having revised my day, and by interacting with each other, we have so many opportunities to identify the thinking patterns that we have within ourselves and apply this. He says, I take scene after scene and rewrite it, revise it. And having revised my day, then in my imagination, I relive the day, the revised day. And I do it over and over in my imagination until the seeming imagined state begins to take onto me the tones of reality. As mentioned, I see my inner world as real, and the source and expression of the outer world, the inner and outer seen as one. Like a dance between the conscious and the subconscious, we listen to ourselves, we trust ourselves, we build a relationship with ourselves. He says, it seems that it's real, that I actually did experience it, and I have found from experience that these revised days, if really lived, will change my tomorrows. When I meet people tomorrow that today disappointed me, and remember, this is our own thinking patterns in relation to, they will not tomorrow, for in me I have changed the very nature of that being, which is the depth of how we all are. And having changed him, he bears witness tomorrow of the change that took place within me. And the next day, we notice the changes. I see the changes play out in all different areas of my life. I observe the changes. The changes are a reflection of the affirmation in mind, which is how it truly is, from the perspective of love. And I encourage that in conversation first in my mind's eye, and it expresses as the words, the body language, the behaviors in which they communicate. I feel so encouraged around you. I call upon these facts in imagination. As we discussed in our recent videos, subconscious speaks. Intuition, we find the facts in imagination of the accurate thinking patterns of how they truly are. For others only echo that which we whisper to them in secret. And so the next day, he says, this very day, start your new life. Approach every experience in a new frame of mind, with a new state of consciousness. Assume the noblest and best for yourself in every respect, and continue therein. Make believe great wonders are possible. So there holds the key. Assume the noblest and best. Let's go back to this part here. Your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action. And the psychological equivalent is mere assumption. And so he says, assume the noblest and the best for yourself. As you do it, in relationship, while in conversations with others, and also upon moments of solitude, reflection, watch that video I did, valuing conversations with others, interactions with others, and solitude. I'll put a link in the description to that video. As you assume this noblest and the best for yourself, others show up to play out in conversation, body language, etc. That which you have identified as truth within yourself. And they reflect it accordingly. You want to think for yourself. You want to reveal your own distinct philosophy, which is found within via intuition of how it actually is. And others show up playing up the theater, automatically so. In relation to what he says here, for others only echo that which we whisper to them in secret. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and further encourage this with an auto-suggestion. Say, I find it easier to, each day, represent myself from the perspective of love, in what I think, in what I feel, in what I imagine. And as a result of my experiences each day, I'm able to identify the thinking patterns that are true and accurate to how I really am and in relationship with others. From the process of representing others and myself in my mind's eye as the facts in imagination found via intuition, I notice the changes occur as a representation of being how I truly am. I recognize then it's easy for me to concentrate my attention because, childlike, I concentrate my attention on what I love, what is fun, what is flow, which is a representation of how I truly am. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.